Hi writers, it's Misty W. The last time we saw each other, you had gone off and made your own recycled quarantine journal, and we had come up with a list of things that we could write in our journal because we talked about how the purpose of writing a quarantine journal is to really document what our lives are like during the coronavirus. And I told you that I was going to go off and write a how-to about how I had learned how to crochet. Because we are at home so much and we are learning all kinds of new things, how-tos might be great journal entries. So today I want you to think about something new that you've learned and consider writing a how-to as your journal entry. Let's do some of this work together. All right, first thing that you're going to want to think about when you're writing a how-to is, what do you want to teach someone how to make or how to do? Those are two options. So for example, I learned how to make crochet. Maybe you learned how to make lunch. Maybe you learned how to make an omelet or make pancakes since you're helping around with in the house a little bit more. Or maybe you've learned how to do something. Like my daughter actually learned how to ride a bike. She could write a how to ride a bike in her journal entry. So that's the first thing you need to decide. Now you have to prepare writing your how-to. The first thing you're going to want to teach your readers is what materials will they need to do what you've learned how to do. So in my case, to crochet, you're going to need some yarn and a yarning or a crochet hook. The next very important thing you'll need to consider are, what are the steps that you need to do your how-to. So for example, what's the first thing you need to do when you crochet? What's the second? What's the third? What's the first thing you do when you ride a bike? The second, the third. Now it is very important to keep these steps in order, because the person that is going to read your how-to will want to know in what order each step comes, because if you do things out of order, that can cause a lot of problems. Imagine trying to make pancakes in the wrong order. You might not even get a pancake. So the steps are very important. Next thing you'll want to think about in your how-to is including some images. Images can be photographs or pictures or sketches, and images are really helpful for the reader to understand how do you do your how-to. It really makes make your ideas come alive. And finally, I love how-tos that have helpful tips. And the reason for this is, when you're learning how to do something, you often have to try over and over to get it right, because you're learning and you hit some roadblocks. But if you write a helpful tip, your reader might avoid some of the mistakes you made when you were learning how to do whatever you're teaching. So for example, I kept forgetting to count my stitches, and all of my pieces would come out different sizes. And so I'm finally learned that I have to count my stitches when I crochet. When you're writing a how-to, you're also going to want to think about all the nonfiction text features that you've learned about since kindergarten. These are really helpful for writing how-tos. For example, if you are going to include an image like a photograph or sketch in your how-to, you'll want to include some labels to let your reader know what you've drawn or what you've photographed. You're going to want to include some key words to help your reader understand the expert words that you need to talk about whatever you're teaching them. And you might consider bolding these words to help those ideas get popped out to your reader. And finally, diagrams are really, really wonderful nonfiction text features that help the reader understand the parts of whatever you're teaching them or how something works. So now I want you to take a moment and look at my entry, my journal entry of how-to, and think, did Misty W do all of this in her how-to? What did she leave out? So hit pause, take a moment and read my how-to and think, what did she do well? What did Misty W do well? And what could she improve on? Okay. So I reread my journal entry, and one thing I noticed I could have done a bit better was I could have added some more helpful tips. So I did include counting your stitches as a tip, but another tip I have to tell someone who's learning how to crochet is not to hold your yarn too tight because it is very hard to get the crochet hook back through to yarn over, as we say. So that might be another thing that I do that I add to my journal entry. So this is where my helpful tips come in. When you're done with your journal entry, you always want to reread your work. We always do that, regardless of what we've written. And so now you have a choice. You can now go ahead and revise your writing, which is something I might do, and add some helpful tips. Or you have another choice. You can write another idea, and writer, the choice is yours. It's always yours. So you can write another how-to if you would like. Or you can go ahead and write a different kind of journal topic. But one other thing that you might do that I think is really fun after you do a how-to is you can, oops, my document camera. You can ask someone to do your how-to. Ask someone at home and see if they can follow your steps and your images and your helpful tips and do what you've learned how to do and do what you've explained how to do in your how-to. So writers, the choice is yours. Maybe today you'll write a how-to. Maybe you'll try one of the other things off of our lists, but whatever you do, write, document what's going on in your life under quarantine, find a cozy, quiet spot, and off you go. I'll see you next time. Bye, writers.